A Step to the Left by The Distortion on AO3. Summary. After Michael meets his end at the hands of Henry's fire in the 6th game, he finds himself back in time, but some things have changed. Or, Michael ends up in the novel trilogy after FNAF 6. Chapter 1.
You played right into our hands. Michael froze and stared into the screen in front of him as Elizabeth's voice radiated from around him. Then, with a small jolt of panic, he peered into the 2 vent shafts next to him. They were still clear, thankfully. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift. For us. His whole body ached with the thought of the scooping room. It ached at the way that he had truly, and without hesitation, played right into his sister's, baby's, hands. He wouldn't let that happen. Not ever again. He knew the truth now, and it filled him with a burning fury. He had spent so long trying to please his father, years of his life spent trying to atone for his actions and his part in the murder of Evan. When William asked him to go to Circus Babies, he hadn't even really thought of the greater implications. He had just wanted to help his sister. He hadn't thought of how his father could have orchestrated the death of so many, including her. He looked down at his hands. They had gotten better over the years, but they still held that faint purple tint that he could never seem to get away from. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. He would never do his father's bidding again, not even as he takes his final breath. Now we can do what we were created to do, and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. The joy in her words caused him a pain comparable to having his insides ripped out. This wasn't his Elizabeth. She wasn't his sister anymore. Watch, listen, and be full. The room was filled with a brief and loud beep, and Michael sighed in relief. The less time he had to listen to Baby, the better. He needed to go home and plan. He needed some way to ensure that this place was burned to nothing more than a pile of ash and buried so far below ground that even if the abomination that used to call himself William Afton survived, he would never crawl his way back out of his grave. Michael's thoughts were interrupted by a voice, and one he recognized quite well, even if it had grown weary with sadness and age. Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. The tapes had been quite the surprise, but there was no saying that those were recent, or even directed at him. This was different. Michael furrowed his brows, or what remained of them, and Henry spoke. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. Henry's voice paused, and Michael wondered what was going through his head. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune, a labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. Michael reached up to wipe the sweat pouring off of him, keen to keep it out of his eyes. Something clicked as he did, and he started laughing as Henry continued. It was a maniacal, desperate sound that he tried to tamp down with his hands. Fire. It was getting hotter, and Michael's discomfort was vastly outweighed by his relief at his fast approaching freedom. Henry was always one for planning the dramatics, even if he usually liked to stay on the sidelines and watch as they unfolded in front of him with a childlike glee. Michael didn't think that would be the case this time. Henry wouldn't continue after this, not after releasing his daughter and the others. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. As Henry talked, Michael began to truly understand Henry. While he had been throwing himself at challenge after challenge, and danger after danger, Henry had been playing the long game, They'd always disagreed on their methods, but to see them come together like this in one final fuck you to William and his creations was the best ending that Michael could have ever hoped for. This is where your story ends. Michael felt his whole body relax. Uncle Henry would protect them all, in his own way, from this current reality and the terrible things it has done. And to you, my brave volunteer, Michael jerked, sitting straight in his seat, listening intently, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. Michael felt his eyes start to sting more, unrelated to the sweat pouring down his face. His throat was tight. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. Tears began to pour silently down his face. He was unsure if they were from relief, fear, or even if he was just now, in the end, allowing himself to grieve the life that he could have had. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. Alarms started to go off, systems overheating and failing. He could faintly smell the smoke around him as the animatronics started to howl in the distance. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace and perhaps warmth waiting for you after the smoke clears. Michael wondered if Henry wanted to include him in that statement and shook the thought away from his head. Henry had always cared for Michael. He cared for him in a way that blinded him to the terrible things he had done, like he was Henry's own child. Henry had never accepted Michael taking the full blame for his brother, never accepted Michael holding the title of murderer. It's not that simple, Michael, he had said during one of their many disagreements, putting his hand into his head. None of it is. Although, for one of you, Henry continued, breaking Michael free from his fuzzy thoughts, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. Michael smiled, thinking of his father forever trapped in this sad, pathetic form of his. The smoke was getting thicker, nearly choking him. His smile fell a bit as Henry took a shaky breath, like he was preparing himself for more. My daughter, if you can hear me. Henry's voice shook slightly, and Michael bowed his head. I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. Sweet, wonderful Charlie, who was forced into her role at a heartbreaking age, who always made the best of the terrible situations that she was put in. Would his father have spared her, had Evan not died? He'd had this conversation with Henry too. The memory hurt, and he flinched away from it. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up in their arms the way you lifted others into yours. Michael could feel the heat searing at his skin, but the smoke and years of decay dulled the effect. He was sure he was close to the end now, and he muttered a thanks to Henry as he curled up in his chair. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. He began to fully fade as Henry finished his speech, drifting out of consciousness for the last time. It's time to rest, for you and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends for all of us. End communication.
Hey, Wriggleseek here. As you can probably tell, this is my first time doing something like this, and I don't feel I gave this fanfic the justice it deserved, because I'm not tech savvy, definitely don't have the best microphone, but I've searched, and I haven't found a single FNAF Podfic out there, and as the saying goes, if you want something done, do it yourself. So that's what I'm doing. I've always liked the FNAF time travel fanfic trope, and the distortion put their own unique twist to it that I haven't seen. So I thought this would be a better place to start than any, since it's currently my favorite fanfiction, and I'm so grateful they let me stumble my way into making my first FNAF podfic with their work. I've even started rereading the FNAF trilogy because of this fanfiction, which I'm grateful for. I haven't finished yet, but it's a lot better than I remember. Hopefully my fellow fanfic readers who sometimes want to listen to their favorite fanfiction in the background, but not have it read by text-to-speech, enjoyed this. I can't say when the next chapter will come out, hopefully soon, but it definitely spices up from here, is all I can say.